Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Yo, welcome back, everyone. This is Unbuckled Comics. I'm your host, Unbuckled Cape, and this is a big episode. If this podcast was big enough, I would say that this is probably our most anticipated episode, but it's kind of hard to have an anticipated episode with just starting out like we are, and none of that matters. You're not here to listen to me ramble. You're here for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin. A big episode. It's one of the biggest comics that have come out in recent memory. It is loved all across the boards, critics, casual readers, longtime readers. But is it loved by me? Could this episode get me in trouble with the audience? Well, I guess that remains to be seen. That remains to be seen. Before we get rolling, just as always, I'd like to let everyone know that I have Facebook out there. And then I've been tossing around the idea of starting up some other social media. I'm leaning towards Instagram at the moment. Not really quite sure what I want to do there, but just something to get Unbuckled Comics in the community out there. If you go to Facebook, though, hit the like button and message me on Facebook and ask about the Unbuckled Discord that I have going. It's a really, really neat place. I don't know if you've had Discord before. I don't even know how old Discord is. I'm relatively new to it, but we have a cool setup where we share, of course, all things comics, our comic book hauls from that day, epic variant covers. I have a place if you're an artist, you can put your artwork out there. We talk about video games and TV shows and pretty much anything you want to talk about, you can come there. And also on that Discord, just like on Facebook, you can comment on upcoming episodes to be read on the show. That's a perfect segue because we had our first list of comments. And believe me, I know it's because we're talking about TMNT Last Ronin and not because the show. It's Last Ronin. This is huge. Our first ever commenter goes out to Comic Book N, formerly known as Captain N. Captain N, before I even get started, is a Twitch streamer. You go check him out. He's a good time. And he's a pretty good friend of the show here. So Captain N says, "This was a great story. The turtle they chose to be the last Ronin fits the role perfectly. The backstory, his mission, his pain are all expressed very well throughout the 5-book arc." That's a great place to throw in, just so you know. It will be spoiler free until the very end. So I refer to that turtle as Ronin throughout the whole episode until the very end. Our next comment comes from McG, member of the council. McG, sometime you're going to have to tell me what council you are a member of. McG says, "It was one of the best stories I have read." Now, in our Discord that we have, McG is a comic book guru. He pulls all kinds of stuff, and if McG says it's one of the best comic books he's read, then it probably is one of the best that he's read and one of the best out there. Next, we have Reran, and he gets really, really complicated with his comment here for us. So he says, "I love it." All right. Then Digital Dave gave us a little comment as well. Digital Dave says, "I love how they wait until the end of issue 1 to reveal who the last turtle is. I got to get back to this series and complete it. It's phenomenal and has great artwork." Digital Dave, you need to get back to this series and complete it. What are you doing? How could you see? I got this in the hardcover trade. I did not do the single issues. And I'm so glad I did it that way, because I would not be able to wait month to month or whatever they were releasing them at, whatever increments. I wouldn't have been able to wait. I don't know how you could read a couple of them, not finish it up. Digital Dave, stop listening to this episode, go finish, come back, then listen to this episode. Everyone else, sit down, buckle up, or wait, is it unbuckled? You know what? Sit down, turtle up. Let's go talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Last Ronin. All right, I'm ready for this. Just a couple points here before we get started. It's important to know that this was my first time reading it, so there is a possibility that I have that first time hype left over, although I did read it and give myself like a solid 2 weeks before doing the recording, so hopefully that's gone and washed out of me. And throughout the whole thing, I will not tell you who the last Ronin is, and I'll avoid some other plot points, and at the end, I'll let you know, and then I'm going to jump into the spoilers where I will tell you who the turtle is and a couple other things we'll discuss quickly and then get out of here. I think it's also noteworthy that I really did not want to read Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin, because to me, the Turtles aren't the Turtles unless all four of them are involved, and you have Splinter and Casey Jones and April. And from what I understood, this was a story about one turtle and all the rest were dead, which is true. So I just wasn't interested in it. And this came out at the same time where I just started getting into single issues, and I really only wanted Batman: The Adventure Continues, and that was pretty much it. And I just really wasn't looking into really collecting comics yet. I mean, I was collecting graphic novels, but like single issue comics, I just wasn't quite there yet. And I'm still not doing it a ton, but now I'm rambling and getting off track. I do like that I was able to avoid spoilers because I just didn't read anything about it. I mean, I knew who the last Ronin was, but the rest of the book I had no idea what was going on. And with the, The Last Ronin, The Lost Years that's coming out now, I think I'm going to do the same thing where I'll just wait for the hardcover and nab that so I get to read it all in one shot and I don't have to read a section, wait for all of it to come out. I think that's actually with a comic like this the way to do it. So if you haven't had anything spoiled for you yet, don't let anything be spoiled for you if you plan on reading it. And then, either find all the single issues together, read them all in one shot, or get the trade and read it all in one shot. Another noteworthy thing is, as much as I love the Turtles, I don't have many Turtles comics. It's a blemish that I want to fix, but the IDW run, the trades are just kind of expensive right now, and I don't know, I guess I'm waiting for a gap to pick them up. So, all right, all that said, let's jump into the creators. First and foremost, we have Kevin Eastman. He is the artist, writer, and co-creator of the Turtles. So, kind of a big deal. And then we have Peter Laird, artist, writer, and the other co-creator of the Turtles. Then we have Tom Waltz, Isua, and Isaac Escorza, Ben Bishop, Luis Delgato. They all worked on it as well. The art style in this book does this really cool thing where it balances between different generations of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle styles. It's overall a pretty dark looking comic, which is how the Turtles are in comics. Unless it's like the Saturday morning cartoon edition. But for the most part, the original Turtles, at least, were really dark. violent. They, swore a lot and killed people, not just foot robots, but actual, foot soldiers that were people. So this is a pretty good, back to basics type deal for them. The dark modern art style signifies the present, or the present for the storyline. It would be our future. And then there's black and white, which again pays homage to the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comics, and that is signifying the past, but also signifying the parts that, boy, I tripped myself up because I almost said who the Ronin was already, and we're not even more than 5 minutes into this section. It signifies the stories that the Ronin is telling you, the stories that he's narrating, the backstory part. It's the art style that the original Turtles were done in. There's different variations for different backstories as well. And it really is such a cool way to tell a story, to have it go from this dark modern style to, okay, what happened like 10 years ago, I think it was. Okay, well, that's still dark tone, but, not quite as the modern style. It's not as fleshed out. And then, okay, let's go back to what happened to, there, I almost said his name again. Goes back to the last Ronin and his side of the story. Now we're looking at it in black and white. It's a great way to tell the reader, hey, this isn't present time. This isn't going on right now. I love when comics do this. I think it's a great tool, and one of the best tools for artists and writers to use in comics to get you, again, like we've talked about before, they have to take still pictures and get your imagination to fill in the gaps. And this is one of the greatest tools that comic creators can use, is using different variations of art style in a story to determine time periods. Overall, this is a 9 out of 10 art style. The only reason I'm docking at 1 point is because I do feel like the black and white, even though it is the original, I do feel like sometimes it is hard to tell what's going on. I just wish, like, some of the lines, I wish there wasn't as much going on. I think there's too many lines that make it a little bit too much going on. All right, I do believe that is enough of talking about the art. Let's talk about the story. Part 1, in 3 words. After reading part 1, the way I felt, I'm going to tell you in 3 words. It was, okay, let's go. It feels like a typical plot setup, there is the last Ronin, the lone turtle. He's out for revenge. And then we do have the ghost of the other 3 turtles following. And it's, is it his imagination? Is it actually their ghost? Not really quite sure what's going on there. We do learn who the big bad is in this. And we do learn oh boy. We do learn who the last Ronin is. So in book 1, you get who's going to be our main baddie, and you get who the last Ronin is. So it's a great setup. I read through it, and all of my doubts of, do I really want to read a turtle story that is really just a turtle story? It put that away, because in it does let you know that even though one turtle is alive, it is going to be a turtle's legacy type story. So then we jump on to part 2. I'm going to do one better here. Instead of 3 words, I'm going to give you 3 letters. After reading part 2, in 3 letters, W-O-W. The backstory that they lay out is intense. And from the get-go, we see tragedy hit the turtles, as there was a truce between them and the Foot Clan, and it comes to a blood-soaked end. And we also get to see one of our 4 beloved turtles meet his end. And as much as that part sucks, and again, the whole thing is, it's fast-paced, fast action, and like I said, intense. Like I should have been having myself hooked up to a heart monitor reading this, because I was so invested, and like I was like, dodging the punches with their characters, and it really really sucked me in so fast. Um it's and our turtle that meets the end again. Another issue that I was worried is, I have an affection for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. My affection comes from the cartoons and the 90s live action movies. So, mine isn't necessarily comic book, but when anytime creators decide that they're going to kill off characters, you want it done the right way. You don't want to have it like, let's go to a different comic and take Batman, for example, in Final Crisis. Batman kills Darkseid, shoots a gun at him, and then is hit by his Omega beams. And when you look at that on the surface, you're like, well, why would Batman use a gun? That's not right. I kind of wasn't okay with it at first, but then you get into the layer of it, it's like, oh, well, this was how dire of a situation this was. Batman knew that this special bullet that he had was the only way to stop Darkseid, so he broke his no-gun rule in favor of saving the world, basically, which is the most Batman thing that Batman would do, because he has one rule, and this is the one time that he broke his rule. So you want these characters that you know pretty intimately from whatever type of medium it is. You don't want their deaths to just kind of be like a plot point. You want them to be meaningful. So our first turtle's death is the exact way. Like, again, me not being the foremost expert on the turtles, this is really how it should have been. And as hooked as I am, it is kind of a painful story. It's gut wrenching what's going on, but I think that's what really hooks you. Is you're like, because now one turtle's gone, and you know who the last Ronin is. So now you're like, I don't want to know, but I really got to know how we get down to one turtle. But that's just backstory. We also have a current timeline in this where the Ronin is cared for by an old friend who was thought to long be dead, and offered help by a newcomer to complete his mission to kill the last big bad guy. And it is an Araku. It is a, I'm not going to tell you which one, but it is one of them. So I don't think that is that big of a spoiler. The spoiler is who it is exactly. So part 3, they continue to give us, peace feeding us the plot. We see the loss of 3 more of our heroes in one single flashback. Ronin and his longtime friend, they share their survival stories, because the kind of calamity that brought this all on, they were all involved in it. So they have a moment of, well, I thought you were dead. Well, I thought you were dead type deal. This is pretty important, because we're watching. We've now lost 4 of our heroes, and this little respite of happiness that the Ronin and his buddy pal have, it's a nice break from all of the heartbreak. I think the pacing between the really intense backstory, and then the kind of parts of the, I'm just going to call it the current plot, the current timeline. It's a really good mix, not a miss. We have not had a miss yet. It is a mix. Then we get to see our antagonist. He has a major crazy god complex, and they hint at what makes him feel that way, and give us a little ominous peek into what his weakness might be, which I love the fact that excuse me, I love the fact that we get to build on his character as well, his or her. Oops. that we get to build on their character as well. And yeah, that's part 3. I don't have any 3 letters or 3 words because from this point on, just assume it's the WOW. The wow. This book so far is pretty incredible. So moving on to part 4, Ronin decides to mentor our newcomer for the upcoming war. And then in the backstory, we get to witness the last of his family die and, the means of how that comes. And that actually is a huge part of everything leading up to what's happening. I think parts 1 through 3, everything's important. Part 4 is the most important leading up to the conclusion, which is the exact way this should be. This comic builds and builds and builds and builds. There are other mini series that you read where parts 1 and 2, issues 1 and 2, they're really, really good. Issues 3 is okay. 4, 5, and 6 feel like they're just trying to get your nickels and dimes. And then 7 and 8 are the conclusions, and it kind of falls flat because there was too much filler. Not the case here. Every book, every issue is way more interesting, not way more, but is more interesting than the last. Which is why I'm so glad I did this in a hardcover trade, because I didn't have to wait. Anyway, we also have the Ronin continue his, I have in quotations, lost year story. So basically parts of the story that I believe the Ronin lost year is going to fill in for us. And then an attack is planned and so poorly executed, but to success. And then there is a emergency of an old friend, and the whole thing sets up the final showdown. And again, I realize I'm being so vague right now, but that's because if you haven't read this comic, you do not want any of this spoiled for you. So just a quick interlude before we jump into part 5. At this point in the backstory is so cool. That's, as of right now, that's the stuff that's worth reading for. Yes, it is sad to be a Turtles fan and have to see, quite possibly there's a 1 in 4 or 1 in 4 chance that your favorite turtle has survived. Mine did not. If you know what my favorite turtle is, then I kind of spoiled that for you, but there's still a mystery of who it is. And I don't think I've ever mentioned my favorite turtle on here, so I think you're fine. Even though it's sad, it's still so great. This is great, sad, but great. The current story is also fast and intense. It's, we get that little bit of respite where they're swapping survival stories and, people kind of getting to know each other and feeling each other out of who they are they trustworthy, what's going on. But our last Ronin is super determined in his mission, and they did this story in 5 parts, so there's so much action. I mean, part 3, there wasn't a ton, but in part 4, this little side plan that they devised, which they carry out, and again, to poor execution, and in that, we actually get the temporary reemergent of a old friend and ally. So that was really cool getting to see, kind of another cameo thrown in there. And it really is hard to explain how well done this comic is as far as pacing, and how much information they cram in these first 4 issues is wild. I'm actually sitting here thinking about it now. I feel like I have to go back and read it because I'm starting to wonder, did I miss anything? And it's not an overload. There are comics that you have to read, like the Crisis books for DC. I found myself reading multiple times, real close together, not necessarily because I wanted to, but because, I'd be at work or something thinking about it. I'm like, now wait a minute. Is that how it was, or was it another way? This isn't that way. Yes, it's a lot of stuff and it's fast and it's a very quick hitting plot, but it's done so well, and they thought this out and cared for it so much that it's so easy to follow, but it does make you want to go back and read it because it's good. All right? Enough of the interlude. Let's talk about part 5. And I say talk about part 5, but you're going to have to read it yourself. All I can say is that there are no flashbacks in this. And it felt weird at first to not have any flashbacks, but then it was like, you know what? No, this is how it should be, because we need to focus on the conclusion of our story here. And is it an epic conclusion? It is. It's awesome. It's the exact way it should be. And it actually has a pretty touching ending, the way everything turns out. And my only complaint in this whole thing is the very last panel in the epilogue. And I can't say anything about it, because if I say something about it, it's going to spoil possibly what's coming down the line, and again, spoil the actual ending for you, not the epilogue ending. But I had an issue with the last panel, because how do I explain it without spoiling it? I just wish that I thought they had a special ending that was kind of a love letter, and then there's a little bit of an open ending. I mean, it's not much of an open ending, and they probably won't ever do anything with it, but they did leave some wiggle room if excuse me, if they wanted to continue this storyline. But overall, it is such a minor complaint until I was sitting here, like, I knew I was going to record today, so I was thinking about this episode all day, and I actually completely forgot about it until I said in my notes. So not by any means does this little issue I have ruin the overall comic. Now, I'm going to flip back through my notes here real quick, because I wanted to check something before I score it. So, flipping through my notes, because I'm really good at my job. I guess podcasting isn't my job, so. Basically, what I'm looking to see is what I scored Batman: A Death in the Family, but I don't know if I really wrote that score down. Doesn't look like I did. Well, I would have to go back and check, but the reason I wanted to know what I scored that, and I probably gave it a 10, I think. Maybe not. Maybe I didn't, because I don't remember. Either way, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin. It is a 10 out of 10. Easily. If you are not a Turtles fan, it might be an 8 out of 10, maybe a 9 out of 10, because you don't understand the lore. Maybe you're not invested. You don't know who each turtle is. I still think this is a must-read comic, especially from anything recent within the last 5 years. This is as good as it gets. I haven't read... See, I've read up to like the New 52 stuff of DC, and then just kind of dropped and was working on the backlog of DC. And then slowly started picking up some new stuff. Not DC, but new stuff all over. And this is way, way better than anything current I've read. If you are a Turtles fan and you haven't read it yet, like myself, get to it. Don't have it spoiled for you. Get to it right now. This is one of the most must-read comics that I have on my shelf. I'm sitting here looking at my shelf right now. And again, I just read this, so maybe I am hyped up, but I don't think it is. I think this comic is really going to stand the test of time, and 10 years from now, people are going to look back and look at this and go, this comic, this slaps, or, whatever whatever phrase they're going to have made up. Is it my favorite comic of all time? No, it's not. And that's, I'm objectively it's a 10 out of 10. I can't, it's just not my favorite comic of all time, but boy, if I did a list, it easily cracks the top 10. There's a possibility right now it makes my top 5. Top 3, I don't know. That might be an episode for the future where we actually sit down and talk about my top 10 or 20 or whatever we want to make it favorite comics. I do plan on doing that, but I might save that for like our 1 year anniversary if we make it that far. So, anyway, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a 10 of 10. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin, 10 out of 10. This book is incredible. Again, if you have not read it yet, read it. If you have not read it yet and you haven't had anything spoiled, hurry. Because the Lost Years are coming out, and then spoilers will be prevalent again all over the place. If you had this book spoiled for you, and you're like, well, I know what happens, so I'm not going to read it. Stop being stupid. Go get it and read it. Find the time. It's worth it. It is worth every penny. I don't even know how much I paid for it, to be honest. I typically write that down and, say, is it worth it? Is it not? I don't care. This book, I could have paid, $50 for this hardcover, and I would tell you that it's well worth it. This is one that I could see myself picking up, at least once a year when I have time. It's just one of those comics that I'm going to continually go back to. So, yeah, there you have it. So, that is all I'm going to talk about non-spoilery. Let me make myself clear. I'll do a countdown. I'll do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. When I get to 1, I'm going to tell you who the last Ronin is. If you do not know, let me put it this way. Thank you for stopping by and listening to my show. I appreciate it. Head over to Facebook, like or follow whatever it is on there. I post a lot of stuff all the time. If you're using Spotify or, whatever podcast app, make sure you follow it so you're notified, because I do not post every week. My shows come out the first and second Tuesday, and then if there's a fifth Tuesday, you get an unbuckled and unscripted. But hopefully you know that already. Hopefully I'm starting to turn in some regulars. Even if not, if you're just here for Last Ronin and you're never going to listen again, I thank you for stopping by. And cheers, I guess. Get out of here. Turn off the show, because I'm going to start talking about spoilers in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Last Ronin is Michelangelo. When I found this out, I was a little peeved, because out of all the turtles, I was like, why would he be the one that survives whatever the heck is going on? Why would Michelangelo be the turtle that survives all of it? And as I read this story, I went, oh, wait, it makes sense. Raphael is the one that dies in the first book, and he dies because of his hot-headed temper. To shelve this conversation, by the way, Raphael is my favorite turtle. So, Raphael, something happens, they attack Splinter, Splinter's hurt, they think he's going to die, Raphael just goes off half-cocked and ends up getting himself killed. Makes a lot of sense, right? Our next group that goes down is Leonardo and Casey Jones. They are trying to hold off the Foot Clan to allow April, Mikey, and escape with Fugidroid. And then an explosion happens, and Fugidroid blows up. Kind of blows himself up, actually. And Mikey thinks that April is dead, so he goes off to meet up with Splinter and Donatello in Japan. By the time he gets there, Splinter and Donatello. I think I said that right. Anyway, by the time he gets to Japan, Splinter and Donatello have already died, so Mikey just kind of goes up into the mountain and then ends up going on this long training spree, which will be the last Ronin Lost Years, I believe, is what they're going to lay out for us. The big bad guy is Shredder's grandson. So that was one that I kind of figured it wouldn't be Shredder, but I can't remember his daughter's name. That's who I thought it would be, but it's actually her son. So there's that. And then the ending, Mikey kind of leaves Splinter's notebook that he had for Casey Jones. No, not the Casey Jones that you think. Casey Jones, and April O'Neil's daughter, Casey Jones. It's Casey Marie Jones is her name. And, of course, if you read it, you already know. But we find out that she kind of has mutant powers because April and Casey spent so much time with the turtles, which is pretty cool. The touching ending that we have that I was talking about is Mikey kind of goes into I don't know if it's like heaven or if they're considering it purgatory or whatever we want to call it, but he basically wakes up in the afterlife and he's in the sewer home and his 4 brothers are there and they go out into an afterlife type New York. And Casey Jones is there, and Splinter is there, so it ends with him being reunited with his family, which is where I really, really, really wish they would have stopped. But we move on to the epilogue, and we see Casey Marie Jones training, and, she has Splinter and then Michelangelo's journal that she's using to train, which is fine. They could have ended it there. I would have been happy. But she goes in and, she's talking to her mother, April O'Neil, and it could have ended there, but it didn't. The last panel, which is a full-page panel, is her talking to 4 baby turtles, and she's saying, hurry up and grow already. I've got so much cool stuff to teach you. Basically saying that she is going to be a new set of turtles, Master Splinter. I don't love it. I wish that they would have ended it any of the other chances that they had to end it. I don't like that they left it open-ended for them to go back and, continue to feed off of this storyline. I just kind of wish that they would have given these characters a nice sign-off. It was the Mikey returning to his family at the end. It was so heartfelt. I really do wish that it just would have ended there. Like I said earlier, though, for me, it doesn't tarnish this comic at all. It's just something that I wish would have happened, and I understand why they did it this way, and I'm sure some people think that that's really cool that she's going to train these turtles so that there are still always turtles. This comic also focuses a lot on the bloodlines, the family feud between the turtles and the Orokus. So, I lost my train of thought. Oh, and they mention often how April O'Neil is family to them. So then Casey Marie Jones is family. So then, in a way, it keeps their bloodline going while the Oroku bloodline has ended. So I do kind of get why they did it that way, but again, I wish it would have ended with Mikey in his, we're going to call it his heaven, so, or his afterlife, I guess. But, and man, the whole backstories where we're watching, each individual turtle and Casey Jones do their thing, but just be overwhelmed. It was such a heart-pounding experience in a comic. There's been very few comics. I've read some that have really got me going, but this was absolutely wild how they did it. I I am so pleased with this comic, and I hope if you listen to this, you have read it, and I hope you are as pleased as I am and you agree with me. I think I'm going to be done rambling. As I said before, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for listening. And you're getting this episode in January, so hopefully your new year's starting off good. Yeah, that's it. So, peace.